Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com. This is the third episode of the video series where I'm helping photographers get started in Photoshop. In this episode, we're going to talk about several tools that actually modify the pixels of your image. Now, last week we did some work with layer mask, and we actually painted on the mask in black. In some cases, we painted in white on the mask. Well, we were modifying the layer mask. We never really did anything to the actual image. We didn't do anything to affect the pixels of the image. We just worked with layer masks. This time, we're actually going to do stuff that modifies pixels. Now, before I do that, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about destructive and non-destructive editing. Most of you probably know that Lightroom, and there's several out there, but Lightroom is a program that is non-destructive. That means you could do edits in Lightroom and you could do all these different modifications to your image, and those edits get written to the catalog or in some cases to a sidecar file. And what this allows you to do is you could close Lightroom down, come back a year later, open it up, pick up that image, start editing right where you left off, or you could go step by step back. Even if it's a year, 10 years, 100 years later, go step by step back and undo maybe it little by little or whatever you did, your edits step by step. That's non-destructive editing. Well, Photoshop, on the other hand, is destructive, usually. What you're doing to the image usually is going to be damage, not damage, but you're actually modifying it in such a way that you won't be able to come back to it and undo what you did. Now, I mentioned this a long time ago in a Photoshop video, and I got an email from someone telling me how wrong I was. They said, well, when they do stuff, edits, all they have to do is hit Alt-Control-Z, and they step backwards, step by step. And in this image here, if you look at it, we have a sky and it has no sensor spots and no birds. But if I hit, now I have a Mac, so I'm hitting Option-Command-Z. Again, if you hit a PC, it's Alt-Control-Z. And when you do it, you can see all of a sudden there's a little selection there. I'll do it again. And you can see there's birds there. And I'll just keep doing it. And you could see that these birds are appearing. So it's true. I'm just going step by step back. So that means Photoshop is non-destructive. I could go up here to this little flyout, and there's all my steps. I could go all the way right to the beginning when I imported the image, and there's all those birds. So that means Photoshop's non-destructive, right? Well, wrong. That's not non-destructive editing. Yes, during the session, I could go back a number of steps, not an infinite number of steps, and I forgot how many it is, but you could go back a finite number of steps and go back to, in this case, right when the image was brought into Photoshop. The trouble is, when you save the image, close it down, and come back to it maybe a year later, all this history is gone. So you won't be able to undo anything step by step after you saved it. So that's why Photoshop is a destructive editor. So we do things when we're doing our edits to try to avoid that or to mitigate that problem to some extent. What we usually won't do is we won't do any pixel edits or anything that's really going to edit the pixels of the image on the background layer. So what we'll do is we duplicate this layer, and it's real easy to do. If you have a PC, you hit Control-J. If you have a Mac, it's Command-J. And you duplicated that layer. It's the exact same layer. And it's called Layer 1 in this case. So we're going to do all our edits on Layer 1. That way, if I do some pixel edits here, I remove all these birds because my client wants them all removed, let's say. And I save it, and I send it to them. Well, I have another client and they want the birds in the shot. Well, I could just come back in here and I could take this layer 1, which has all the birds removed, and just throw it down here in the garbage can. And then the background layer is preserved. All the birds will be there. So that's what we try to do to try to mitigate that problem of Photoshop being a destructive editor. So I just wanted to get that out right at the beginning, because what we're going to do is we're going to destroy some pixels. So I'm going to duplicate this background. Again, I have a Mac, I'm hitting Command-J. You have a PC, you hit Control-J. And the first batch of tools I want to talk about are right here. You hit the J key on your keyboard and you'll select the last active tool in this little cubby hole of tools. You can see that there's 5 tools: spot healing brush, the patch tool, the content aware move tool, and the red eye tool. We're going to talk about the first 4. And the first one is the spot healing brush, and this is probably the most common one we use for removing sensor spots, removing birds way off in the distance in the sky, removing maybe a stray branch coming into the image, something like that we want to get rid of very quickly and easily. This tool is content aware, and what that means with Photoshop is Photoshop actually samples the images or samples the pixels that are surrounding, in this case, our spot, and it will use those in an intelligent way to try to replace the pixels we want replaced. For example, we have this bird. We want to, here, let's just zoom in. We'll hit Command plus a couple times. I want to replace that bird. I just put the brush right over it, click once with the mouse button, and it's gone. Photoshop sampled the pixels around it to come up with what to put there. And if you look at the tool attributes along the top, you could see that we have the typical brush. We could change the size of the brush with this slider. You could also hit the right bracket key to make it bigger, the left bracket key to make it smaller. We can't do that while that's open, but we'll do it there. And then we hit the right bracket key now to make it bigger. Left bracket key makes it smaller. Now we go back to the brush. We could affect the hardness, a very hard brush or very soft brush. Softer might make it blend in a little better. Spacing in this tool doesn't really matter as much, but we talk about that in future episodes where that might make a difference. We also have the mode. Now, we used to always call these blending modes. Now, Adobe's calling them painting modes because you're actually painting with the brush. And usually with this tool, we keep it in normal mode. Now, we might use some of these other, I'm going to call them blend modes because that's what I'm used to calling them. And we're going to talk about that in future episodes when those might come in handy. But right now, for the sake of this video, we just keep it in normal painting mode, we'll call it. Now we have 3 different tools: content aware, create texture, proximity match. Usually we just use content aware, and I don't remember ever using create texture or a proximity match on this tool. But content aware works great. You can see we just go over this like bird here. We're going to get a smaller brush. If you just want your brush just a little bigger than what you're replacing, click once. And you could very quickly come in here and replace things bird by bird. And if you miss one a little bit, just come back in and click again. You also could actually paint with this. This is a real brush. So if I want to remove all 3 of these birds, I could just click once and drag right across and paint. So you can remove stuff in larger swaths like that. Now where this tool comes in very handy is if you're doing a portrait. A lot of photographers use this to get rid of skin blemishes. So we're going to zoom in by hitting Command plus a couple times. We'll use this, get rid of this little mole, click once, get rid of that little mark there, this little mark there. So you could just quickly come in and just, get rid of little moles and things on your model skin. And this is super fast. You could go very quickly with that tool. The other thing is something like this. We have some branches bleeding into this image. So I'm going to hit Command plus a few times. To zoom in, hold the space bar in to drag over here, and then we could just paint along here and get rid of that branch, get rid of that branch, and then get rid of this branch here like this. Just paint it like that, and bam, they're gone. So you could go very, very quickly with that tool. Hit Command 0 to zoom back out. Now, what I think we'll do is we'll talk about the next tool with our portrait. And the next tool right under this spot healing brush is called the healing brush tool. Now with the spot healing brush, we let Photoshop decide what pixels to use as a sample. With the healing brush tool, you tell Photoshop what pixels to use as a sample. And to do that, you would come on your image somewhere, and let's say I want to replace this blemish right there, the tiny little blemish right there. And I'm going to sample right here. I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key in. It's Alt if you have a PC, Option if you have a Mac. And you'll see that your cursor turns into a little bullseye. Click once with the left mouse button. There, I just sampled those pixels. Now, wherever I put it, I'm replacing that blemish with the pixels I sampled. So I want to replace that little mark there. Hold that Alt or Option key in, click once, come in here. You could replace stuff like that. A lot of photographers prefer to use this method. It takes a little longer because you have to continually sample pixels that are nearby the little blemish in this case, because we're doing a portrait that we want to get rid of. In case of, let's say, the birds, we'd sample there, and then I'd come in here like that. And if I come way over here, it won't look right, right? See, it's got a line there because I'm sampled over here. So you have to continually update your sample to get a good replacement, in that case. So it takes a little longer, but you have a little more control with that healing brush tool. Now, the tool right below it is the patch tool. And this is a very powerful tool, and it sometimes gets a little complicated, but we're just going to talk about a simplified version of the patch tool for now. I don't want to give you guys so much all at once that it's a little overwhelming. That's the problem with Photoshop. It's overwhelming. It has so much in it and so many tools available, and there's so much you could do that it gets confusing. So if we take it little by little, I think you'll better digest it. So the patch tool. This is when you want to replace larger things. In this case, I was using the spot healing brush, and I was replacing these birds one by one by clicking them one by one. I could come in here where these clumps of birds are and replace them one by one. But a better choice is the patch tool. We could draw a circle around a clump of birds in this case and replace those all at once. Now we have two different types of patch tool. If we look up here at the tool attributes, we have a content aware tool and a normal tool. Again, content aware is really powerful in Photoshop. It really kind of looks at all the pixels around, in this case our patch, and uses those as a reference to what to fill the patch in with. It usually works pretty good. Sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't work as well, I usually start with the content aware. Now, a lot of photographers do it differently, but I start with the content aware. And if I can't really get a good patch with that, I'll try the normal tool. And I'll try to explain both of them in this episode so you get an idea what the patch tool does. We'll start with the content aware. And to the right of that, you see we have structure. The higher the number, the more it's going to adhere to what you want sampled, meaning it's almost going to replace it pixel by pixel. And let me demonstrate that. Let's say we'll leave it at structure of 1, and we're going to take this group of birds right here. And I'm going to zoom in a little just so you can see it a little better. So we have this group of birds right here. Let's just take this group. So what we're going to do is you just take your patch tool, click once with your left mouse button, hold that left mouse button in, and you're going to draw a circle around this group of birds. Okay? Now you can see that's a selection. Those are called marching ants. Okay, so we've got this selection. We're at structure of 1. We're just going to drag this. Now you drag it somewhere, and we're dragging now over pixels that we want sampled. And I'm going to let it go right there. And you can see it changed considerably. Did you notice that? Let me undo it by hitting Option Command Z. Again, it's Alt Control Z if you have a PC. Now, I'm going to drag it around to where I did before, right there. Now, I want you to look not where my cursor is, but where it was. Like, I want you to look over here, okay? So I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to let go of the left mouse button. And you can see it changed considerably. That's because structure is at 1. If I put structure at 7, see how it's more exactly what I dragged over? Right there. See, it didn't change as much. It still changed, don't get me wrong, but not as much. Now, I'm going to deselect. I want to get rid of this selection, so I'm going to hit Command D. That's deselection. You hit Control D to, if you have a PC, to deselect. Now you can see that doesn't look as good. That's why usually I like structure around 1 and then come in and replace something. And it does a better job, in my opinion. So then you could quickly come in here and circle off groups of birds, in this case, like this, and replace them. And you can see I'm going to hit Command D again to deselect. It looks natural. It looks fine. We'll hold the space bar in, we'll drag over this way, and you can come in here, take this group, move them over there, and then take this group, and I could move those, but I'm not going to yet. I want to show you the other tool is the normal tool. It just doesn't use the content aware technology. So it's going to give you more of a blend. It's kind of blending what's there, where we dragged it to with where we came from. So sometimes though that does work better. So you try them both out. Now we're not going to talk about patterns or things like that. I don't think a photographer would often use those. But if you want to experiment with stuff like that, you can. So that's the patch tool. And for portraiture, let's zoom out on this while we're here. And you know what I forgot to do is, and I apologize, I didn't duplicate my background layer. So Command J to duplicate that layer. That's bad Photoshop practice and what I did. Because we'd really want to mitigate the destructive editing as much as possible, and I didn't do it. I started removing blemishes on the background layer, so that's not always the best thing to do. Now, where a portrait photographer often uses the content aware patch tool is on bags under the eyes. And what you do is you would drag, or you would draw, I'm sorry, a rough circle around the bag like that, and you would drag it onto, in this case, her cheek. And then you would do something similarly over here, that, drag it on her cheek. Now it kind of doesn't look good. We're going to hit Command D, and you can see it doesn't look good. But what you do now is you're going to change the opacity of this layer, and it helps it blend in better. You don't want her bags completely gone that are under her eyes. You just want them softened. So what you're going to do is the opacity is at 100%. That means that this layer is like a regular image sitting right on top of the image here. But if I bring the opacity all the way down to 0, it's as though that layer isn't even there. See, I'll turn it off, turn it on, you can't see any difference. What you want is just have the opacity down slightly so it softens these but doesn't totally eliminate them. And if I zoom out by hitting Command 0 and I turn it off and on, you can see the effect. There's before, there's after, before, after. So that's where a portrait photographer will often use the patch tool to help soften bags that are under someone's eyes. Now, again, I didn't do good Photoshop practice on this one. I didn't duplicate the background. So we hit Command J. So you could do the patch tool here, like this here. See how it comes out, like this, and just drag it around like that. And so you could get rid of those branches with that patch tool as well. So that's the third tool down. The other one is a content aware move tool. Let's go over here. This one, to tell you the truth, I don't use that much, and I really don't know too many people that use that this much. I'm going to use this tool that much. Let's hit Command plus a couple times, zoom in, hold the space bar in to drag down here, and we have a manhole cover here. So similar to the patch tool, we're just going to draw a circle around it. And let's say I want the manhole cover there. All right, it's moved there. Hit this checkbox up here. And when I hit the checkbox, you'll see it'll disappear from here. And we moved it. And it kind of filled in the best it could over here. And similarly, this has a structure mode. And it will be less specific when it's at structure 1. But when it's at structure 7, it'll make it more like specific. So if you're trying to line up like lines or something like that, you might want the structure at 7. Whereas at 1, it will be less specific. So we want to remove this piece of garbage, move it over there, and like that. Of course, we don't want to move the garbage. We probably want to remove the garbage, not move it. But that gives you an idea what that does. So that's the content aware move tool. Now, we're going to deselect this. There's one more tool I want to talk about. It's in a different cubby. So we talked about the first 4 here. We're not going to cover red eye tool in this video, But we want to go to the clone stamp tool. You hit the S key on your keyboard. It's the keyboard shortcut. It's right here. And you actually have two. We're going to talk about the first one, the actual clone stamp tool. And we look at the tool attributes. We see we have all these different brush modes up here, painting modes. They call it effect mode for this. And the opacity, you could say how like strong of an, or how solid the effect is. And let me show you that. We have this piece of garbage here. This is similar to the healing brush where we're going to get a sample. We have to tell Photoshop where to look. So I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key, and it's Alt if you have a PC, Option if you have a Mac, and I'm going to sample right there. Now we bring that over here, and now we could try to line up those bricks, and then click once, and we just got rid of that piece of garbage that was sitting there by clone stamping what was over here to there. Similarly, I'm going to do that with this manhole cover. So I'm going to sample here by holding my Option key. And again, if you have a PC, it's Alt. Click once. That's our sample. We'll bring it over here, and we'll click once, hold the left mouse button in and drag it over to the left, and we replace the manhole cover. So that's the clone stamp tool. That's a tool that's often used instead of one of these other tools that are in the this cubby, the spot healing brush, the patch tool, and that. So we often use that clone stamp tool. And I wanted to include that in this video just so you get an idea of how it works and why you might want to use it. So these are the most common tools we use to actually modify pixels. Almost every image gets at least one of these tools done to it, whether you're removing sensor spots or something unwanted in the image, like a bird way off in the distance, a piece of garbage on the ground, something like that. So I hope that made sense. I know I kind of did a lot in this video, and I'm trying not to give you too much all at once. So hopefully I didn't give you too much and I didn't get you lost in this video series. I don't want to lose any momentum. I want to keep you guys with me throughout the series, because hopefully by the end you'll be able to use Photoshop and not be intimidated by it. So that's it for this video. Thank you everyone that watches my videos. I truly do appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you guys soon.